Hello and good evening. Welcome, EM. Thanks for joining in again. Today, we're going to continue where we left off on yesterday's stream. I'm going to go back into Blender. We got less than an hour. I'm going to be mocking up the next 6 frames for the page of the comic book. It is going to be really cool. I'm going to bring over the vehicle that I had mocked up in a previous live stream, bring it in to get these next couple of frames. Then we should have a full page set up and mocked up in order to move forward. Now, the character's not yet set, so I won't be finessing with the character this time around with its armature and whatnot. But we're going to make the vehicle come into the main file. So let's get right into it. I want to show you first, whoopsie daisies, the comic strip book strip that we'll be making this time. So where we left off, we had right here, this is a sequence we were working on last time. And as you can see, I haven't brought my character in yet. I have him very sort of basic, sitting in the sitting down position, and I have all the different elements that I'm going to later be making from scratch. But this is the idea, right? Just kind of throwing objects together into a scene, getting the composition down, getting some idea on lighting. And then once we have many pages set up, we'll be able to come back and actually finesse it. Are we my stream hasn't changed over to the 3D. Can I get I'm gonna check on YouTube real quick, see if the video is actually streaming as it should, because it doesn't show that from my end. Okay, yeah, it looks fine. All right, must be an lag on my end only. Okay, so let's get right into it. We got the Blender file open. We got one still frame set up. I'm actually going to save this one because it is relevant. We'll go into yesterday's stream and put this as part of the set from yesterday. Here we are. And this one can replace this one as number 4 render. Okay, so we got that one out. Now, this doesn't seem like my screen mirroring is working. Essentially, if we have this 3D file, I'm going to now turn off the things that we don't necessarily need, such as the clouds. We don't need those. They just show up as blocks. We don't need all these plants. I trust that they're there. We're not concerned about the other details that were accompanying the plants, such as the computer. This is why we're lagging. My laptop is not plugged in. Always plug in your laptop, whether it's a Mac or a PC, when you're working with heavy files. That is much smoother. Okay, now we are screen mirroring. So this is the strip that we're tackling today. We got the character getting up from the desk, thinking, well, I gotta go test out this object that I'm making and put it into the vehicle, see if it works well. So he goes up the stairs, up to this top level where the vehicle will be parked up. So this is where we'll place it when we first bring it in. The whole time he's going up, it's actually going to be 4 frames in which he's actually getting up, because he gets a call from another character. Suddenly everyone wants to talk to this guy after leaving him alone to do his work. And we reveal the vehicle, and then we reveal where this component that he's working on is going to be placed into the vehicle. So let's get right into it and get this done quickly, swiftly, and efficiently. So first things first, we're going to bring in our vehicle so that we can place it at the top level here, and we get this nice reveal shot of the vehicle as the character walks up next to it. Let's go ahead and bring it up from the previous live stream. So this is the mocked up vehicle, not the final vehicle, but rather it was from an approach that I did that actually worked much better. There were 2 streams where I did this car, and in the second stream, that second method proved to be a much better way to go about the beginning of the vehicle, whereas it was sort of in reverse. The first stream was actually the detailing process. Of course, I'd never done a vehicle before. I was using the experience I had for making furniture, and having that transfer to making the first vehicle that I was working on ever. So it was a nice little learning lesson. So we're appending right now the car. We got to give this just a second to load up. And just so you know, in tomorrow's stream, which I plan on coming around just around 8 p.m. But yeah, Tuesday, Wednesdays is when I stick to the time. Every other day, I got other stuff to take care of, so I do come online, but it's a bit more when it's more convenient. And I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do for tomorrow's stream. It'll be a surprise. How about that? Okay, so in the collection from the other file, we got all this stuff that came in. So the reference images, the lights, the cameras, all that jazz. A whole bunch of stuff that we don't really need right now. So I'm going to go look for the collection over here on the right-hand side. Here we are. So these are all the elements that came in. I'm going to just start deleting some of these, so I don't need the lights that came through. I don't need the cameras that came through. I really think I only need one of these cubes, because I'm going to work without wheels, without these Taurus lights, which, by the way, I should maybe do a whole session on just lighting, because I recently tried doing those ring lights, and for the car renders, it is coming out really great. I'm working on a project that I cannot disclose, but it's work related on a little side project. And it's got a lot to do with cars, so they got me doing a lot of car renders. That's a really, really neat lighting trick that I've enjoyed once I found it out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and delete all these different cubes. So we're left with just the one. There we go. That's it. That's our car. If I go into material preview, we can see a little bit better how that looks like with the textures. I should have brought in a few textures, unless I brought in the very, very basic skeleton, which it looks like I did. I had set up some windows on one of those, but it's fine. I can do that later if I want to for the mockup. We'll go into our side view. Let's pull this down. Go into wireframe, so that I can place this car. It's going to be floating anyway. It's not going to be touching the top surface. It'll be cool to underlight it, so it kind of gives this glow underneath anyway. So I'm going to hide these letters too, or maybe not. Maybe the letters could coexist with the car up here. Either way, I need to find what collection this is in. So I could hit period. Whenever you need to find, this is a really useful trick. Whenever you need to find whatever object you select in your 3D scene, if you have a bunch of layers or in collections within collections, and it gets a little jarring, you could select an object. You can hover over here into the what was this called? The layer, the collections, and hit period on your number pad. If you don't have a number pad and you're working off of a row of numbers like I am on my laptop, you can go to preferences, input, emulate number pad. All right, so that'll override all your numbers and your different keys as though you had a number pad, and then that'll work. Okay, so it looks like, are these objects spread out? Okay, why is this not working now? Did I uncheck number pad? No, emulate numpad. Either way, there we have our V. We're going to hide that. Looks like we got another V. There we go. M, there we go. Here's TVM. Hide all that. And go to the side view. We got our car up here. So I'll see if I bring those letters back. For now, I'm going to keep them out. Now, here's the thing with the mannequin. Last time I moved the armature around so that I could place him sitting. I'm not going to move him all around the first time around all over the scene, because it'd be tedious, right? I'd be like moving him into one position as though he's walking, and then take my screenshot or render, then move him again, or like have to animate him. I just don't have time to do all those mock-ups, because again, all those decisions are going to have to change later on anyway. So I'm just going to find where I have another mannequin that I can work off of. It's just the one. So I'll do it once. I'll take him here and select, right click to select hierarchy. So I select the geometry of the mannequin as well as the bones. hit Shift D to duplicate, and move him over to the side. So the way that I'm actually going to go about this is I'm going to have, basically, I'm going to place him in a whole bunch of different places, like throughout where he's supposed to be in each scene. So that then I can just kind of take my camera shots and I'll basically have him in every position that I need him for each frame, right? So if we're getting 6 frames out, there'll be 6 of them because he's in a different position each time. So now with the armature selected for this one, I'm going to go into pose mode so that I can move the bones around, starting with the hip bone. Not starting with the hip bone, starting with the arm. There we go. Okay, I need to solve for this because this is happening last time where I'm rotating always from the 3D cursor. So let's figure this out right now. How to not rotate from the 3D cursor. That can be really useful if you want to rotate a whole bunch of different objects from one point. And at some point in this file, I had selected it to that. But it looks like if I select the object, then I do Shift S with the cursor selected. There we go. I can select where I want to rotate from. So selection to cursor, snap selected items to the 3D cursor. No, that's not what I want. Cursor. I guess I could just move the cursor to the object in this case. Cursor to selected. There we go. All right. Not the solution I was looking for, but a solution nonetheless, and also a lesson. So I'll select the other bone here, Shift S, cursor to selection, or cursor to selected. There we go. And I can rotate the arm in place. Very nice. Do the same thing for the femurs. So Shift S, cursor to selected, rotate. There we are. Do it for the bottom bone. There we go. And same thing for the other leg. We got him standing. Cool. That's good enough for the mock-up I'm looking for. I got this rogue bone over here. I'm not sure what it belongs to. I could know if I go over to the bones here and I open the bone groups. No, not the bone groups. The individual bones. Bendy bones, relations, inverse kinematics. Here, open the pose. Control master. Strange. I'm just going to move that bone closer to the body. See if the mesh comes back to life. It's just looking like a twig. Or maybe I can just do without it. If I go from pose mode into edit mode, oh, back into edit mode, it just jumps into some other pose, but that's fine. All right, so if I move the skeleton around now, yep, the mesh moves around with it. I can move him over here where I want him because he's gotten up from the chair, right? So similar to having duplicated the mannequin, I'm going to duplicate the chair just so I can get it for that shot. And as I explained last time, since I made this chair in its own file, I made it with an empty. So all the objects that are relating to that chair are part of that empty. I can go over on the right, hit period again to find where my desk chair is. Select that whole hierarchy. Select objects and then Shift D to copy it again. And just move it slightly back. Conversely, another thing I could do, instead of duplicating it, is actually just take the empty and keyframe its position, right? So I'm gonna continue going off of the sequences that I had set up here before. So if you remember, I had set up this camera here with different keyframes, right, in order to move it through the scene, and I had ended on 50. So I could just continue going from there and start animating my chair too so that it can move. That's something I could also do with the character, but again, that's for later on because for the mock-ups that I'm trying to get done right now, it would simply take longer. And this isn't even the character that I'm gonna end up using, right? So if I were to take that time, I might as well do it with the actual model that I plan on using, right? For mockups, we're just trying to get a preview of the whole big picture, right? So we can later come back and finesse all the parts. So keyframe number 60, our camera is remaining at its previous position from keyframe 50. I'm gonna grab that empty for the chair right there. I actually have to snap back to 50 so that I can lock in its position there. So it'll be in that position up until frame 50. Got it right there. Now I jump back to 60 and I move it back with GY. There we go. So push it back as though he got up and keyframe the Y axis right there because it's the only one that changed color. So if I go back to keyframe 50, I can test it out, see that the chair goes back to its original spot and then back to 60. We got it moving back. Cool. Now we get this mannequin and we hide him from the render and from the camera as well as its armature. All right, so the sitting one isn't gonna play a role in this part. We're gonna take this armature, we're gonna move it forward in front of the chair, and I'm gonna quickly consult my storyboard, right? So the camera on the storyboard is actually on the side. So it sort of moves back to where it was in keyframe 40, right? So in keyframe, right now we're in keyframe 60, but it has the same position we set up last, which was, as we can see in the timeline, if I zoom in on the timeline, it was at keyframe 50. But we'll take it back to 40, and we see that the camera was off to the side there. And I want to mimic that shot. If I click here to go back into that camera shot, just kidding, I think it might have been keyframe 30. I could also just go back in my storyboard to check. Yep, there we go, where he stood up. And we're going to end up moving this camera slightly back for this new shot. But I can build off of this one. So we're on keyframe 30. And instead of copying these values, or the right way to copy all these values over and whatnot to move it over, I'm just going to hit Shift D so I can copy all those settings on that keyframe for the camera over to frame 60. For those of you that just joined, just letting you know, I'm setting up camera views and character positions for a new page in the comic book that I'm mocking up. So real basic renders, trying to be real quick and efficient just so I can mock up the different frames. What I'm doing right now is I'm transferring these settings from the camera from keyframe 30 over to keyframe 60. So if I look through the camera, this is frame 30. If I go to frame 40, we had that sequence going on, frame 50, and frame 60. So we're back to this one. Now, as I had set up in the storyboard, we actually want to move this camera back a little bit. However, it's already pretty far back. If I keep moving it back, I'm going to hit this wall here. So let's just see how far I can get away with that. So I'll split my view into two. Hide that. Look through the camera on the left-hand side and then move it in the 3D space on the right-hand side. So see what I mean there? I just clip with the wall. So I can take it as far back as I can. And then what I'll actually do is make it a bit more of a wide angle. So since he got up, for this shot, we'll reveal more of the room and more of the environment, right? Maybe even a bit more, not more wide angle. I'm actually just going to move it a bit lower or angle it lower. So RX. So if I do RX, it's going to be global. But if I do RXX, if I hit X twice when I rotate, there we go, it's going to be based on the camera X rotation. So that's what I want, revealing a bit more, but kind of looking a bit down. And now I can move the camera down so I get the full view of the character, having the character following the rule of thirds for the composition. Cool. And we have our first frame for the night. The character got up. Cool. Now that that's set up, in the next one we see the character moving up the stairs, right? So as we had set up everything else, we'll go to frame 70. And it'll actually be easier on my computer if I do keyframe, if I start keyframing the position of the armature. So I've decided I'm actually going to keyframe the camera and the armature together moving forward. So I'm just going to stay on frame 60 for a second, select the guy's armature over here, and go to position and just keyframe all the location and rotations for the armature. You can just click and drag down to keyframe all these different things as you move down. Okay, so let's place him over at the stairs. So we'll move to frame 70 first. And we'll move him over. Okay, so in this shot, the camera is actually going to be set up somewhere around here. So we're going to start to see the character moving up the stairs here, possibly a bit hidden by the wall that the stairs are wrapping around. This is, there we go. So I keep having to move my 3D cursor's location in order to do these rotations. I'm going to go to the top view and set this side to wireframe to position this, make this much easier on myself. There we are. Cool. These are some big steps I made. Or it's a small character. Okay. We got him on the steps. Let's move, well, let's keyframe this position for now. I might finesse it still, but we still want to lock that in. And I'll select the camera now. Same thing. I'll go to the top view, move the camera over, and then rotate it so it points at the character. There we go. Now, if you remember, I had set a depth of field, which is why we're seeing the camera get really, really blurry. So we'll have to tweak that with the keyframes as well. All right, so we'll move it back, and we want to set this, it's at 50 millimeters, which isn't bad because it's forcing me to move the camera back quite a bit. But it's really cool here, actually, how we're getting the character in the background, and in the foreground, we still peep the desk. Because it kind of gives us some context on where the staircase is in reference to where we just were, right? If we still see the wall, we still see the glowing object and the desk on the left, we know that these stairs, the beginning of these stairs, are on the other side of the wall that we were just looking at, right? So it gives us context for the space, which is important so you don't lose your reader, right? If all of a sudden this guy's just on stairs, you're like, well, what the heck, right? Where'd he go? He's just, it looks like he's in a totally different room. But if we can just kind of give hints of where we just were, right? It's much more effective as a storytelling tool. There we go. Or as a storytelling sequence. Yeah, let's put it there. I might finish that later, but for the mock-up, that's good. Now, something I failed to do in the last one, so if I go back to 60, I'll now see the character and the camera snap back to where they were. Cool. What I didn't do, though, is keyframe the depth of field, the focal, sorry, not the depth of field, the focal length. So I got to switch this back to where I had it, which was 24. I don't think I keyframed the rotations on the camera either, because this looks a bit different than what I had before. So I'll move it up again. RXX, move the camera down like that. Rotate the camera down. GZ to move it up. And then there we are. We have it where we had it. Now I can keyframe those rotations. Very nice. And the focal length. There we are. So we got it yellow. So we have all that updated. We go to keyframe 70. So we see our new one. There we go. And we had this set to 50. So we'll keyframe that. And I also failed to keyframe the camera rotation, it seems. So make sure you keyframe everything. Just be safe. Keyframe everything. There we go. It looks like I didn't keyframe the Z location. All right, we'll save there. Next frame, we got 2 down, 4 to go. Number 80. So this time the camera is on the top level, right? And we're looking down. Hopefully we can see some context that we're looking in the scene right now from a different angle, because we are changing quite drastically where we were. We're gonna move up. Actually, as I'm looking at my storyboard, I might switch this. I'm gonna move the camera to where I have it currently in the storyboard, but I might switch the sequence in which I have it in. So we'll test this out real quick. I'm going to move the camera up, go into solid mode here so I can get a better idea of where I'm at. Bring it over, rotate it around this corner right here, RZ. There we go. So we have it looking down the stairs. I know it doesn't look like much yet on the left, but trust. There we go. We're trying to peep him coming up the stairs. There we go. And yes, this confirms my suspicions. The way that I storyboarded this was not entirely accurate to the model that I have set up. Or I wasn't considering certain things, but what'll happen is I will keyframe this position now for 80 and I'll move it over to 90. So we can see him coming up the stairs there. Move this a bit over so we can get him. I'm tripping myself out right now. There we go. It's like, do I look at the camera or do I look at the 3D space? Always look at the 3D space first as you're moving things around so you understand the context in which you're moving them in. There we go. Actually, that's not the right landing. Yeah, what happened here? Edit. I'm going to pull this edge back because my stairs keep going. Ooh. Now, the way I have to go about this is actually pull this edge inward right there, and then this way, so that in the top view, there we go, I can just move it in the top view. So it lines up with the edge of the stairs right there. Our character has some clearance there to get through. And then I'll grab this edge of the platform. And if you're wondering why it's extending so crazily, it's because I have a boolean going on that is cutting through the platform. So my landing is actually supposed to be right here. And I'm just going to start faking this by hitting Control R and introducing a loop cut right here. And just going to right click, then click that edge so I can finesse this as I need to. So that should be right there. Add another loop cut right here. Yep. Thanks. Select that edge. Move that right over here. So it creates a new step. Click that one again just to straighten it out. Perfect. And a new loop cut. Last one, I think. So that, there we go. We're following the shape of the stairs. Nice. Okay. That is how that's supposed to look like. Cool. Okay. Might need to tweak that later, but I'm good with it for now. All right. And go back into our camera view. That makes a lot more sense. So I can now finish moving the camera to where it should be. We could see it should be higher. It should be more off to the side. There we go. And now we rotate so we could see a good shot of the stairs. Nice. That's what I want. So the character should be here. However, as I mentioned, I'm going to move this over a frame, right? So even if I'm on keyframe 80 right now, and I want the camera position that I have right now to be on keyframe 90. However, if I move away from keyframe 80, I haven't set any of these positions. I haven't set anything. All this is orange, which means if I move away from this keyframe, I lose it all. So I got to just set all these keyframes here. And then what I do, now that I have the keyframe set up on 80, I can just hit G in the timeline and move it over to 90. All right, we had some weirdness go on, and that's because it's interpolating, right? It's like moving from frame 70 to frame 90, right? So there's some motion to the camera. And so what we're seeing now on frame 80 is just like an in-between of the two states. So, which is going to be really funny because the shot that I'm replacing is actually similar to what we're seeing on the right. As the character is going up the stairs, we're going to peek him out of this opening right here, right? So I am going to create an opening here through the knife tool, or actually, rather than the knife tool, much more cool. or architecturally sensible would be to select that face right there and use a modeling tool. So if I bring up my tools over here on the right hand side, with that face selected, I can do an offset or inset rather of the face. There we go. So I can cut that in a little bit. That's good. I'm happy with that. And then with my selection tool, I can just delete that face. Boom. And we can get our shot right here. Okay. So for frame 80, which is where we're at, we want the camera to be somewhere around here, right? So I'll select the camera. I'll back out since I have it, you know, way out here. Since it's going to be a little bit easier to just see it on the right-hand side because I'm off to the side. I could even set it like this. And what I'll do is I'll hit Control-Alt-0, and that'll just snap the camera into the current view that I have. So I don't need to like move the camera around and finesse it all like that. Honestly, I should have just been working like that the whole time rather than moving the camera around and such and giving it rotations. So there we go. We can peek at the character moving through the stairs and move the camera really far out. So I'll go back into excuse me. I'll move the camera really far out so we can get a nice side shot there. Move the camera down. Oh, that was rotation. Actually, not move the camera down. I want to rotate the camera. There we go. So I can get a bit of a more straight on view of that. And I want to punch in the focal length. So we're zooming in right there. Nice. So 135, just to make it even. Keyframe that. Adjust the position once more, just slightly. Maybe a bit off to the side. I'm going to put him on the left side, actually, this time. Following the rule of thirds, right? So it's not like a purely symmetrical shot. It's rarely that you want to use a purely symmetrical shot because it's typically actually kind of boring to look at, believe it or not. But there's good opportunities to use it, but you don't want to abuse it. You don't want to always just center things. You want to have things follow these fundamentals of composition. It's super blurry, so I said I was going to tweak this at the end, but I'll just go ahead and do it now just because it's a little exaggerated at the moment. I'll go to my focal distance here, and I'll just slide that up until my subject is in focus. That's definitely something you want to do. You don't want your subject ever out of focus, unless it's like really, really artsy what you're doing, but I'm not trying to be that interesting or trying too hard to be interesting, right? There we go. Characters in focus, keyframe that. Cool. So our camera is keyframed. I'm going to go back to 90. Make sure that I still have that shot looking down on the stairs. Yes, but I have to change my... Not only do I have to re-keyframe my focal distance. There we go. So my steps are in focus. But the focal length as well. I'm like still way too punched in for this one. So 50 right here is going to do for that one. And keyframe that. So 80 and 90 are set. Save for the character. So I'm just going to keep going with the camera and then come back and do all the positions for the character. So frame 100, where are we at with the storyboard? This is where we reveal the car. All right. So we want a shot of the side of the car. Exciting. Finally there. So we want a shot of the side of the car in a way that makes sense. So if the character comes up through the steps and he's standing next to the car, he'd be on this side. And we want to show the character behind the car, so we bring more focus to the vehicle, which means our camera would come in on this side. All right, Control-Alt-0. And I'll just move the camera. Whoa, what happened there? I'll just move the camera around, just like that. Cool. Get a side view of the car. And I kind of like having this structure in the way as well in the foreground. It makes for a more interesting shot to have a depth like that, so we could sort of get a good read on the space, right? If we have this thing kind of cutting through diagonally, it almost fits this diagonal line I have here in the composition, but I'll just kind of have it, or maybe originate right there, match that a little bit better. So we have that element in the foreground, we got that element in the background. We'll put the character right here in between the car and this back element right there. Make for a really good shot. Nice. So we'll keyframe the position, all these orange bits. I should just be doing all of it, even if it's green. I gotta remember that. And the focal length and the focal distance. I'll make sure that the car is nice and sharp. So we'll take a look at this edge and mess with the focal distance. There we go. Keyframe that as well. All right. Nice. That was easy. Next one, we're going to look overhead to the car so that we can see where this part is going to get inserted into the car. So that would be sort of like this, kind of where we had it a little bit, jumping back. We got that bar crossing through as well for this shot, which can make for something real interesting too. So something like that. The piece, the component that the character is moving up to insert into the car is going to be placed right here, right? So it'll be interesting to kind of see how the character walks up to the side of the car, kneels down, this part of the car opens up, it's got this glowing thing in it that's red, and then the character inserts the blue glowing thing in there instead. Right? So there we go. Snap our camera there, kind of tweak it around so that we get what we want. There we go. We can focus in on some of the features of the car here from the top view. Cool. I'm going to call that good enough, and it'll get tweaked as I move the character. Rookie mistake. I didn't move my keyframe. So now I'm going to go over to keyframe 110 and lose my position and have to do that again. Happens from time to time. Okay. Not too bad. Maybe even rotate the camera a bit. Sometimes you can't be mad that you have to redo something, because then you look at it with sort of a fresh set of eyes or a little bit differently, and you get to make it better than before. Yeah, actually, I think I like that more side view better than the straight top down. Yep. So I just learned, I should have known this maybe, but on this car model, this line right here is called a horizon line, which is a line that extends from the back of the car all the way to the front, which I was freaking out when I learned that, because I was like, oh man, I did a model of this car and I had no idea that that was a thing. That probably would have helped me to model it. And now that I look at what I did, I sort of did it. This horizon line should actually be continuing right here, right? On the hood. It shouldn't be going down this way, but the horizon line should have been this edge continuing up here. But, you know, again, when you redo something or you have to start it over again, you do it better that second, third, fifth time around, right? You can never expect to get anything right on the first time. Otherwise, you're just going to kill yourself with anxiety like that, I feel. That's been my issue, at least. It's like, oh, it's got to be perfect, or I've never done this before, and people are going to think I suck at something I haven't ever done. Obviously, you're going to suck, right? Okay, so let's take a look at these camera positions, and let's see where we left our character. So we go to 70. Okay, our character was left off at 70. So now we'll go at 80. Make sure our camera is still how it should be. Yes. So this is where we start keyframing our character again. So I'm just gonna select the armature, move him over, boop, 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 moving up the stairs. Maybe we hide his head. Maybe we cut off his head. Nah. Maybe we put him right there. I said, you know, don't center him, and now I'm centering him. Let's grab those keyframes, save that position for the character and the rotation. We go up into the top view. We gotta rotate this guy because he's not facing the right way. There we go. I should have a platform there. Actually, he shouldn't just be floating, but it's fine. We'll get him there for now. Reset those keyframes that I changed. Save, because I haven't saved in a while, I don't think. And to reveal him, I'm just going to do a bit of a cheat move. I'm just going to select this panel, select these edges that determine this opening, and I'm just going to scale it up. That's not how I want it to scale. I will set the, can I do the Shift S thing again? Oh yeah, cursor to selected. Oh, that was a good thing. So since I'm scaling and rotating everything from the 3D cursor, and I just learned if I select all these edges, even though it's like a triangle, if I hit Shift S, cursor to selected, it's floating in the center of all the edges, which is perfect because now I hit scale and it moves perfectly evenly from the center. So I can make this opening just slightly bigger. And maybe I switch to point mode, grab this point over here, and just scale that one point towards the center just to make this a bit more interesting. So it's like thicker at the bottom. And my excuse for that is load, right? Like weight wise, you want it to get thicker towards the bottom so it has more foundation, even though it does not matter in this situation at all. But yeah, it just makes it a bit more interesting to not have it just be a purely even cut. Nice. Designing architecture around your camera views. All right, a character's there. Opening, cool. Everything's keyframed, I think, I hope. I'm going to move over into 90. I'll come back and check on 80 later, and I'll finesse anything that's not right. Okay, our camera is still good. Might finesse it once I move the character like I did before, or did I not do that before? Once I export it, I'll move the camera so that my character isn't perfectly in the center. But for now, I'll just keep moving forward. Let's grab his armature. Let's move him a few up more stairs so that we get a good, I think this might be the first time we get a good look at the character's face. Which, funny enough, we actually don't reveal the character's face until much later on in the story because he wears a mask. Da-da-da. And the reasons why get revealed probably not even in the first issue, honestly. I was still kind of thinking about that, but I think he definitely wears a mask in the beginning of the story, and I'm thinking like maybe even through the first couple issues, we just don't reveal the fact that he's human looking or not. Nah. But yeah, no, human looking is the original intent. There we go. Off to the side a little bit. Not walking perfectly in the center of the steps. His knee's a little jank, but you know, he's gonna be replaced. He's not gonna be a mannequin forever. Okay. Character is set. Frame 100. Boom. Now we got to move him all the way up there. So we still have his armature selected. I'm going to just move him right up here. And then use the top view to get him in frame. There we go. Right next to the car, because it looks like he's hitting that beam. I wonder if he hits that beam if he gets closer to the car. He does not, but maybe I want to move the car and the mannequin and the camera so he doesn't hit his head. But I'll make note of that later. I think for the purposes right now, just having him walk right next to the car right here so you get some context on the size of it is good. It's not that big a car. This is sort of traced out of the Audi TT if you didn't happen to see that stream. It's just a rough body right now, and then it'll get tweaked into some real fantastical looking cyberpunk type car. All right. Make sure we keyframe the rotation and all the positions for that armature, and we're set. Last one, and we got to start exporting these frames, and we got time. We're good on time. Okay, so looks like I set this camera for the third time now. This will be the third time I set up this camera. I set it up a different way the second time around, something like this, and I forgot to keyframe everything. So third time's the charm. There we go. We got a good side view of the car. Move it up, rotate it down, or like sideways, whatever. A bit higher. Rotate. That's how I want it. Ooh, I could even like have the car meet that diagonal line right there. Yeah, so the car can cut a diagonal through the frame. Ooh, see? Third time's a charm. That's even better than the two previous ones. Set up some new keyframes. Camera is set. I won't have to do that a fourth time. Okay, and now the character bends over. I'm not gonna have him bend over because that would mean keyframing the whole armature and animating him and stuff. So I'm just mocking this scene up. So to make it look like he's bending over, I'm just gonna kind of do that. So that from the camera, it looks like he's bending over that portion of the car. There we go. Nice. And what else? This is where he inserts that piece into the car. So maybe I bring in that piece just so that that's part of the mock-up. So I can go down here. Here's that piece. We left it on his desk. It's all a fantasy digital world, so it's not something he has to physically carry. It's sort of like loaded up into the ether. So he just like loads it into the cloud from his desk, and then it loads into the car at the top, which is kind of dumb, right? If it just loads into the cloud, why does he have to go up to load it in, right? Well, maybe because he's checking how it fits with the existing parts, right? I'm gonna have to figure that out into the story. Okay, figuring out plot holes already, or nothing that doesn't have a solution. I can come up with these things. Again, I'm just creating this entire world. So, all right, we got a copy of the piece up there. Let's go through the whole sequence. And if they look good, we might as well just start exporting these images so we can get them into InDesign. So let's click on the camera so that I remember where I'm at. Where's my camera? That's not my camera. That's my camera. So I think we started off today at frame 60, if I'm not mistaken. I go to frame 60. Boom, there's our character. There's the piece. He finished his call. He's ready to go upstairs. So let's set this now to material preview. This is going to take a second. So I'm just going to give it that. Whew. That was efficient. This makes me feel good because this is like, what? This will be sort of 3 or 4 pages mocked up in a few days' time, which means hopefully I can start speeding up this process. But no, because I have to mock everything up. Yeah. I'm just trying to get a gauge on when I might have the whole 30, 40 pages mocked up so I can then start tailoring each one of these objects, right? Like nothing is like fully designed except maybe the furniture and like some other things. But a lot of these things that I'm coming up for the story, like this component that goes into the car itself, the character, like all those things need to be fleshed out once I have the entire mock-up set. So that'll be interesting. Okay, so I think we're done loading because I haven't brought in other things, but we'll go ahead and bring the other things in. So we'll bring in the plants, which hold the computer as well, and some other features like the light fixtures. And the clouds. Yeah, let's bring in the clouds, even though they just show up as boxes for now. I'll render out this first one, just so you see if it works. Last time I tried doing this on stream, it kind of said no. Your computer is out of resources. It looks like it's kicking off, so we can just kind of see how this looks rendered. And then the rest of them, maybe the one where we reveal the car, I'll render out just to kind of get that extra little cinematic look. And also this will give me an idea on how much each frame takes to render as a mockup in the current state that this is in. Oh, just kidding. The last one took almost 7 minutes to render. No, I'm not going to use 7 minutes of stream to just put this image out. So let's just do the mockups. All right, we'll do view and viewport render image. And it'll just slap what we're looking at here in a full res image. Let's go. Let's go. It's not liking it. I think I might just have to do this off stream just to not have to spend a lot of time here just staring at my screen. Because I can't really do anything. If I open InDesign right now, I'm just going to bog down my Blender. But we have our sequence set. Maybe the next time we'll see each other, I'll have all these frames set into the comic book. We can actually start testing out some inking strategies. So that's another thing, is each frame not only gets rendered out in Blender, but then I also go and ink over it with the iPad with non-real ink. And that is something that also has to be considered with these mockups, right? So, because there's a certain line style that I'm going to be going for, and the lines that I draw over these mockups are going to end up determining the camera views and the compositions as well. So yeah, perhaps that would be a good exercise. If I get these mockups into the comic book, I export those images out and I just start inking over them. And that'll start to give me some context on how the ink overlays with the renders and how that'll play with the panels of the comic book. I might have frozen my Blender for whatever reason, so I am hoping that I did save everything. I'm pretty sure that I did. I wouldn't hit render without saving. It's just like muscle memory at this point. So yeah, we'll see each other in the next stream. I think that'll be an interesting one too, because there is a process to inking in Procreate on the iPad, and I actually learned this from a good friend of mine. I mean, it's a pretty like tested and proven method out there, but a friend of mine taught it to me. And it's you kind of draw these things out in Procreate. You kind of get this like hand drawn feel to it. Yeah, I'm totally frozen. And then you take it into Illustrator, and in Illustrator you do your image trace, right, of just the lines. So that's kind of like a way of cleaning up the lines that you do by hand in Procreate. You take them in Illustrator, do that image trace pass, and then it overlays over the same image that you traced or that you used as a background. So let's double check here and see where if my autosave was just from a couple minutes ago. I'll just go ahead and open my autosave. But yeah, my computer is frying. That was a lot for it. Open recent. No, let's go to recover our autosave. It was from 5 minutes ago. Let's compare that with the actual save file. Anyway, I'm not going to bog you with this. I'm going to get these mock-up frames into InDesign, get that next page set up, and the next time we see each other, we'll have 3 pages set up, and we'll choose one of them for inking to test out the inking process. And that'll be a nice little stream that I'll do from the iPad. I've kind of shown the airplayed iPad onto the screen, which I guess is my approach for streaming off the iPad next time, but it'll be the full... No, just kidding. I have streamed off the iPad before to show the storyboarding app I use called Paper. So this is a step above that, is where I use Procreate to do the inking. So I'll see you in there for that one. I'm going to clean up my files, get my mockup set. For those of you that just jumped in, I will show you nothing at the time. You came in at the end, but you can check out the past stream and scroll over to the end or watch the whole thing. But if you scroll over to the end, you'll see those pages that I've mocked up with renders from Blender. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great night, everyone, or morning, wherever you're at. It's nice to have you. Always feel free to drop in something in the chat if you ever come back. Please come back.